Hello everybody, welcome back to part 7 of Let's Play Land of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse for the Master System. The very last level, the bane of my existence. I actually do pretty well all the way up until the final boss, in which I then start sucking pretty badly. But that'll come later. First of all, Quickening 666 was interested to hear about my little time-traveling universe that I created involving the Bermuda Triangle. So, just to start off, I better say that I don't believe in any of this stuff. You know, it's just a story that I made up, and it's not based on any kind of scientific evidence or anything. It's just stuff that I thought sounded cool, basically. So it all started a couple of years back when I had these 3 characters from separate stories that I really liked, and I wanted to put them in a story together. I know, kind of like how Marvel and stuff puts random characters together. Anyway, because they all existed in different time periods, unless I either brought some of them forward or brought 1 or 2 back, I couldn't really have them in the same story together without changing, without changing the characters a bit, but I didn't want to do that for some reason. Probably would have been a lot easier. But, yeah, so in order to bring these 3 characters together, it would have to involve some kind of time travel. So I went away and I thought about it for a little while, and I remembered this movie that I saw way back when I was a kid, called The Philadelphia Experiment. And basically, in the Philadelphia Experiment, these guys, back in World War II, were trying to cloak American naval vessels from the Nazi U-boats. And so they built this machine, and how it did that was to slightly put the ships out of phase with this dimension, and thereby allowing the radar waves or sonar, whatever it was, to pass through it, undetected. But instead of just cloaking it from radar, the ship completely disappeared into subspace. And this is sort of where my own interpretation of what went on starts to come in. My idea was the machine, it disperses this radiation, and as something gets saturated, if it gets enough radiation in it, it is shifted to an alternate dimension. Now, because they didn't want to shift it to an alternate dimension, they obviously didn't crank it up as far as it could go. But they underestimated how much, of this radiation it would take to shift the ship to another dimension. So instead of just putting it slightly out of phase, it goes all the way into subspace. But it doesn't have enough in it to go anywhere else. And so it's essentially moved nowhere. Anyway, they try the experiment again in the 80s, but this time on a town. And the exact same thing happens. The town vanishes, and 2 guys who are on the boat who jump ship see it floating in the vortex. And that's sort of where the basis of the world comes in. Basically, this crazy scientist gets a hold of some footage of, the town floating in the vortex, and he gets this idea that if he could get enough control over the chronosphere, he could create his own world out of bits and pieces of our world. And so, by using the chronosphere's time-traveling capabilities, he goes back in time and muddles around with stuff so that when the Great Depression swings around, he's very, very well off. Like, mind-bendingly rich. So he can build basically a gigantic chronosphere, which would be able to move huge bits of land into subspace so that he could create his own world. Of course, the first few times he does this, he absolutely screws it up completely. And the land he tries to bring in gets totally destroyed. And that's how the bad lands get created. It's basically like a big asteroid field. But if you can picture what this world would look like, because eventually he did figure out how to do it without it all being screwed up. It's like a bunch of islands, like floating in the sky, and he's moved most of them together so that they're in one big land mass. Oh, here's where I start sucking. I mean, I wasn't doing that great before, but this is where I really, really start to blow. Anyway, what does this have to do with the Bermuda Triangle? Well, basically, one of his really early attempts to bring in a landmass, one that actually, the first one that didn't end up getting obliterated and turned into the asteroid field, was this island that was where the Bermuda Triangle is now. Basically, he saw this island that he really liked, so he said, I'll have that. And so that was, I suppose not one of his first experiments, but one of the first ones that didn't blow up the land. However, it's still extremely screwed up. You see, after he figured out how to bring a segment of land in without blowing it up, he then had another problem, which was that the land would be absolutely saturated with this chrono radiation, and I realize that basically just means time radiation. But anyway, it would be saturated with this stuff, and see, because what happened is the land retained a link to where it originally came from, so that when the chronosphere, if it were to ever be turned off permanently, it would eventually shift back to where it originally came from. And in this mythology, that's why some things get sucked into the Bermuda Triangle. Also, in this mythology, there's other places around the world, but the Bermuda Triangle is the single largest on this world. Because, some things will... basically, there's time radiation in that area. And if you fly through there when it's particularly bad, you can get shifted into this crazy world that he's created. And, so yeah, that's how it all started. And after... See, because this guy, he can't just travel through space. He can also travel through time, and also to different dimensions. And so, let's say we, at some point, invent space travel. We'll find, like, Bermuda Triangles on other worlds where sentient life exists, or where just life exists. And that's him. It's all him. He's responsible for creating, places that are temporally unstable all over the universe. And I might have to continue this on to the next part. Yes, I'm about to die. I don't know why I was sucking so bad. Anyway,